Okay, guys, so I'm back with another video. This is like my reaction to the Ravens versus Patriots game. I was pretty backed up. I got a couple videos that I meant to drop last week that I didn't get a chance to. One was like my reaction after the Dolphins game, and one was just a prediction of what I think our record will be. I'm still gonna upload them anyway. But as far as like the record, I'm gonna say it again. I still think this, despite our defense struggling, I still think we're gonna finish. I still think 13-4 is like a realistic expectation of where we could land by the end of the year. But yeah, this Ravens versus Patriots game, it was solid. I know some people might say it was great. I thought it was solid. I don't think there was anything to be too concerned about compared to like the Dolphins game where, again, the defense just collapsed. I thought like something I definitely took notice of was I felt Kyle Hamilton like actually made a difference in this game, obviously, because he had that huge forced fumble against Nelson Aguilar when when Nelson was looking like he was about to take off after that big catch. So I was excited to see that because I'm pretty sure about last video I already said I'm not a big fan of them drafting a safety when they could have went offense again. But again, at the same time, I'm not rooting against these people. I'm just not the biggest fan of them. But again, I'm still happy to see that he did something substantial that helped us not keep in the game because we already were winning. But that helped us like actually, just keep putting pressure on their necks. Marcus Peters had a really solid game. Like if I'm not mistaken, he didn't allow any receptions, and then he also caught an interception. So it's nice to see Juice Man get like back into the swing of things. Marlon Humphrey had a solid game. I think he only allowed I don't remember the amount of receptions he allowed. I think it was like maybe a handful, like 2 or 3 or something. But it was like he wasn't allowing a whole lot. And then he also caught that like game sealing interception in the end zone towards the end of the game. So like there was obviously also Josh Bynes caught an interception. Like Patrick Queen got a sack. Even though Patrick Queen had a couple moments in this game where he again was struggling to like tackle. But like I think this defense, to me, I would call this kind of a redemption game, bouncing back from that collapse against the Dolphins. But there's still moments where you watch the game and it's like this defense still at times looks like, I'm not gonna say weak, but they look very, very, very exploitable. For at least if you're coming from the perspective of an opposing offense that's about to play them. Like even though Mac Jones, in my opinion, had a mediocre game, he still threw for like 321 yards. And in the last video I recorded last week, I said they should not allow Mac Jones to go out here and throw for 300 or 400 yards. But again, he still, threw for 321. He didn't throw any touchdowns, but he did like rush for like 30 yards, and he had a rushing touchdown. But again, that's still, again, a bit concerning because again, Mac Jones, in my opinion, isn't all that. So again, if you're allowing somebody average at best to throw for 320 on you, like what's gonna happen once you get back to facing these like top tier quarterbacks? Like in the last 20 games, the Ravens have allowed over 5,800 passing yards, which is the most by any team in the NFL. Like that's something to be very concerned about. Last year we had the worst passing defense, and again we have the worst passing defense. So that's still something to be like extremely concerned about, especially because, like I said in the last video, the Ravens waste a lot of resources on defense. So to waste all these draft picks on players like Owe, who aren't having much of an impact, to waste all these signings and draft picks on defensive players who in many cases aren't having an impact or are having a very small impact, I don't think it's worth it in today's NFL. I still stand by that. Because at the end of the day, when you're looking at these teams that everybody is looking at as Super Bowl favorites, many of these teams don't have like these super impressive defenses. They usually just have overpowered offenses and then a defense that just has enough playmakers to make stops when necessary. Like, ironically, we have good players, we have playmakers, but at times it just seems like it seems like this team isn't prepared to get stops when necessary. But again, I felt in this Patriots game they did do enough to show that they have the potential to get stops when necessary. But then it's just really gonna boil down to, can they also duplicate what they did here and also apply that when they play an elite offense? Because the Patriots offense is nothing impressive. Like that, I was expecting, like I was predicting the score for this game was going to be 31-17 or something. I wasn't expecting the Patriots to even put up 26 points. So it's still yet to be seen, like if the defense really gets into the swing of things and starts shutting people down the way they should be shutting people down. Like when you have 2 all-pro corners, when you have a Pro Bowl or all-pro caliber safety and Marcus Williams, like you would expect. So we'll see. That's all I can say is we'll see. I think they could bounce back. There's still time for them to keep just getting, really gelling together and really getting into their own groove. So I'm looking forward to that. As far as the offense goes, before I get to the offense, as far as like the New England, they also like had an easy time running against us. Like the Patriots as a team rushed for 145 yards and averaged like 5.8 yards a carry. Like Devontae Parker had a big game. Like he had 5 receptions, but he had 156 yards. Like he just kept having all these big plays. But again, we still got the stops when it mattered. But I'm still interested to see how this plays out against the Bills. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But as far as offense, it was a solid day offensively for everybody. Lamar, he had 4 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and then he only had 1 interception. He threw for 218 yards, and then he rushed for 117 yards. So that's a total of about 326 yards. I think so far in the season, he's averaging about like 330 total yards a game, and he's averaging 4 touchdowns a game. Like, and many people are bringing up the point now that he's on pace to have a 60 touchdown season, which I would really be excited to see. Of course, I'm sure all Ravens fans would want to see that. So we just got to see how it works out. I'm very excited to see, because he's clearly on a mission. I don't have anything too negative to say about the offense in this game, really. I like the fact that we're seeing so far this season, we're seeing Lamar under center a little bit more. I know some people feel like it doesn't really matter if he's like under center or not, and that's true. I guess it doesn't matter that much, but again, I guess the reason many Ravens fans we talk about that is just because of the fact that when we don't see it, it almost feels like a symptom of a bigger issue that many of us bring up, which is the lack of creativity in Greg Roman's offense. But so it's still just seeing that it's one of those things where it raises the morale amongst the fan base, at least in my opinion. So as far as the 4 touchdowns Lamar threw, they were all dimes. Like he threw this perfect touchdown in the corner to Devin Duvernay, and Devin Duvernay is on a hot start this season. I'm excited. If I'm not mistaken, I think Devin Duvernay is top 3 in the league right now as far as touchdowns right now. He caught 3 touchdowns and then he got a return touchdown. He's off to a really good start. I'm really excited for him. Again, as I've said before, I've never been a big fan of Duvernay. But at the same time, I'm more than happy to see him and any other receiver that I wasn't into prove me wrong. Because if that's the case, that means we're doing really well. So, yeah, shout out to Duvernay. He had, I think on the game in general, he had a couple catches for 20 or 30 yards. Josh Oliver caught a touchdown. And that was also a nice throw, because in that situation, Lamar threw it basically to his back shoulder, to actually guide Oliver away from what would have been a nasty hit. which, obviously I'm not gonna say saved them, but it definitely, put him in a position to just take the hit on the back of his shoulder instead of like head on. J.K. Dobbins came back in the game. He didn't play a big role in this game. I think he had like 20 yards rushing, and then he had like a reception or two. But he's still going to be eased into the offense, so it's not that surprising that he didn't do a whole lot. It's still yet to be seen if he's going to actually have a big impact coming back and, helping the running game get established, because so far this season, outside of Lamar, there is no running game. But speaking of the running game, Justice Hill had a breakout game today. He had a breakout game against the Patriots where I think in total it was only like 60 yards, but it was still impressive because I think he only had like 9 or 10 carries. So he was averaging like 6 yards a carry, and he had that one big breakout run like down the field that almost was a touchdown. Mark Andrews had a solid game. He had like 8 catches or something for like 89 yards, but he had a drop early in the game, but that just happened, so it is what it is. Overall, he still had a solid game, and then of course he caught that touchdown in the back of the end zone over that Patriots defender. That was really impressive. Even like the whole sequence was impressive. Seeing Lamar throw what looked like a fadeaway, like kind of like a fadeaway jump shot, like he threw it in that sort of fashion, and Mark Andrews just pulled it in. Rashad Bateman, he had a pass that I felt really could have been a big play. Well, not I felt it could have been a big play that Lamar was trying to go for. It was just out of his reach. I'm not like super mad at him for missing it. I'm not super mad at Rashad for missing it, but that's one of those moments where I'm like, I just wanted him to have a little bit extra effort and just really just dive for it, because it tipped his finger. It tipped the tip of his fingers, so it's like it was right there within arm's reach. If he would have died for it, he would have, had a really good chance at it. But it wasn't really the end of the world. But then also Rashad Bateman really the more that I'm talking, he didn't have really that good of a game, because on top of that, he also in that game had a fumble. He did like tackle the person who recovered the fumble, but still, at the end of the day, he had a catch and then he fumbled it. You could argue that in that what was it? I think the Jets game earlier this season, you could argue he fumbled there too, but they called it an incomplete pass. It was a similar situation. So some people, they could argue on if they think that was a drop pass or incomplete or not, but still, even though he didn't have a great game, he only had like 2 catches for like 59 yards. But one of those catches I was really excited about, because that was the catch where he was only maybe 10 or 12 yards up the field, but then he just hit the defender with like this really nice move where he just crossed him up and just got like an extra like 25-30 yards on it, which again is one of the reasons why so many people, including myself, do have high hopes for him, because you're seeing him have these moments, and he was even showing glimpses of this last year, where he has these moments where he's showing you that he has like that dog in him, where he wants to make that extra effort to get more yards after the catch, and he does it well. Like it's almost like he has like a signature move where he just kind of jukes these people from the side to just get around them and just get that extra couple yards. And in that case, he got like an extra like 20 or 30 yards. I feel like if that is his signature move, I feel like that's kind of an underrated move, because I don't think a lot of Ravens fans really talk about it, because I swore he's done it. He did it in that game. I'm pretty sure he did it against the Jets. He did it a few times last year, and it seems to be effective. He has really good footwork, in my opinion, at least, just as a fan watching. Like, that's what it looks like to me. So I'm excited to see him bounce back from a subpar game. I'll be expecting next week for him to really go off. I'm gonna get into that in a second. The O-line didn't have that great of a start. I felt they could have done a lot better, but I don't feel like they did terrible, but they got off to a terrible start. Like Lamar got sacked like 3-4 times in this game. Like he was under more pressure than any of us would want to see. But at the same time, this Patriots defense is a lot better than people even talk about. Like, Matt Judon's a beast, obviously. they gave him credit for a sack. And then the other guy, I forgot his name, number 91, I think it was. Like he's clearly showing that he's a beast. To be fair to the O-line, the Patriots is not an average D-line. Like this is a very above average defensive line. So they did, I guess, as best as they could, considering that it's not the most well put together O-line. And there's also injuries, especially at left tackle. Ronnie Stanley still hasn't come back. Juwan James got hurt. Patrick McCarry, if I'm not mistaken, I think he got hurt too. Like there's a lot of issues with that. So next week we're going to be playing the Bills. I still think that's a winnable game. I think we're still going to be riding a very serious momentum because we should be 3-0 right now. If it wasn't for that collapse in Miami, we should have been 3-0. Oh, the collapse against Miami, we should have been 3-0 right now. But so yeah, I think the score to the Bills game, I think that'll be 28-23 Baltimore. That's what I think. It could be depending on. I think it depends a lot on the weather too, because there's expected to be a lot of rain, and I'm assuming that it's in part because of like the hurricane down in Florida, and like a lot of southern states are gonna be dealing with the rain coming in from that. So depending on the weather, I think. Yeah, I don't think it'll be that high of a scoring game, but we'll see. I still think the Ravens are going to win, though. I still think this is another scenario where we're going to see Lamar get probably at least 4 touchdowns. I think it's very possible. Like the Bills have a lot of injuries in their secondary right now. They lost. Like a lot of their players, like they're getting banged up. So I think the Ravens could exploit that. I'm just concerned about, can this O-line hold back? What's that guy's name on the Bills? Like Rousseau or something like that. Him, if they could just hold the best they can, if they could just hold off that guy Rousseau and Von Miller, that's the main thing I'm concerned about. Because if they could hold them off, I don't think this game is going to be that. I don't think it's going to be that competitive. That sounds arrogant to say, obviously, because the Bills' offense is really good. Stephon Diggs is a beast. Josh Allen's a beast. But I think, again, if we could just hold off Von Miller and the other guy, Rousseau, I think we should still have a decent amount of control over that game. And I don't think Lamar and these players are going to have trouble scoring. I do expect Mark Andrews to have another big game, especially if the players on the Bills are having injuries with their safeties, and they might be running a little thin in the middle of the field. But I also expect Rashad Bateman to have another bounce back game. And also I think another reason Rashad Bateman might have having a really good game is, and I can't prove this, but he's about to go up against the Bills where they already have a bona fide superstar at receiver with Stephon Diggs. I think that Rashad Bateman has enough pride and competitiveness in him to want to prove that he can be in that same class too, that he could be on that same level as well. That's just what I think. I think he wants, it's just like the interview he did with Marlon Humphrey a couple weeks ago in the offseason, where he was talking about how they were getting traded. He was just like, my first thought was, this is my time. I really think that he's looking for any opportunity to just show that he's also capable of being that guy. So I think he could have another 100+ yard game next week and another touchdown. That's what I'm predicting from him. I'm really excited to see it. As far as the defense goes, I'm just nervous on how they're going to contain Stephon Diggs. I don't know if it's really possible to really contain Stephon Diggs, especially at this point. He is already hit the ground running this season. He is in prime form right now. And then even if you try your best to contain him, assuming Gabriel Davis plays, I don't know if Gabriel Davis was still hurt or not. I haven't checked, but you might have to worry about him breaking out and getting some open looks, and then Knox and then Devin Singletary. But again, obviously the number one focus needs to be containing Stephon Diggs. So hopefully the secondary just has like the game of their, really just the game of the year for them. Like just really just lock in. I think it's possible, but it's still yet to be seen. Hopefully just Patrick Queen could also like really just keep just stay on a good track, and just it's sad to say, but just get better at tackling people, like, because I feel bad sometimes with the amount of heat that Patrick Queen gets amongst Ravens fans, because a lot of people they like really from the second year, this is only like his third year, but from last year a lot of people have pretty much given up on him, and like they're constantly critiquing him. He in my opinion, he's had some good moments, even this season. But then there's also moments where it's like he's struggling to just hold on to people, just tackle them and wrap them up. And you don't want to see that. But that also goes into my point on the Ravens have wasted a lot of resources on defensive players. Because the same year they got Queen, they could have drafted T. Higgins. He was right there. They chose not to. They chose Patrick Queen. And guess what? T. Higgins has been balling pretty much from day one, whereas Patrick Queen has it's just been just up and down. Like he's just trying to really get established still. But nonetheless, I think the Ravens are still gonna win this game. I think the final score will be 28-23. I think Lamar Jackson is gonna throw for like 350 and have like 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think Rashad Bateman's gonna have 100+ yard day. I think Mark Andrews is gonna have another solid day where he gets like 80 to 100 or more yards. I don't know if J.K. Dobbins is gonna break out just yet, because it'll probably take a couple more weeks for him to really get comfortable again, and for them to get comfortable like giving him most of the snaps again. But I'm expecting a solid day, even if the weather's bad. I still think the Ravens are gonna have that. I think the Ravens are gonna just take care of business, and I think the Bills are gonna come up short. So let me know what your thoughts are and what you think the final score will be in the comment section below.